Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Jets, and Mets fans. My name is Nick, aka Goody, and with me is my old man, aka the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. Our New York Knicks, they limp into the All-Star break, losers of 4 straight, losers of 5 of their last 6. But before we get into the overall state of the Knicks, the biggest talk this past week was about the robbery that went down in Houston, where the Knicks got beat up the entire game. Holiday is putting up an absolute desperation shot. Jalen Brunson with a challenge gets called for a foul, and he gets 3 shots with 0.3 to go. The refs immediately came out afterwards and said that it was the incorrect call. The Knicks didn't even get the ball back with 0.3 seconds left because he hit the rim, and therefore, they actually started the clock a little bit fast if you go back and watch that. Josh Hart grabbed it and called the timeout in midair. Probably should have got at least 0.1. Jason Goebel is the guy who made the call, and now the Knicks have filed an official protest. Talk to me, big guy. How did you feel when you were watching that game coming down the stretch, and how did you feel when that whistle blew?
Well, I mean, it was very upsetting. Obviously, I didn't think it was a legitimate call. I was very upset with the refs. It's just poor refereeing, man. You know me, Nick. I'm not one that ever blames a game on the refs. I wouldn't blame the whole game on the refs. Yeah, there were bad calls throughout the game, but that final call was extremely egregious, and it was just infuriating in so many ways. The protest, what's that going to do? They say like 6 protests have been successful in the last 20 years. What are they going to do? Restart the game where it's no foul, so it's 0.3 seconds left, and it's our ball? It's not going to happen. The game's over. We lost. That's it. So, it's just upsetting, but we got to move on.
Well, as far as the protest in particular, I have seen a couple breakdowns where I've seen a lot. Most people say it's futile. They're just trying to prove a point, and I'm fine with them doing it just for that reason. But I have also seen some breakdowns where they say this is like one of the best and like most, like apropos usages of the protest, because we have a clear-cut thing where it says, okay, if that foul's not called, the clocks are hitting zeros. That 0.3 is not getting, so the clocks are going to hit zeros, and we have a tie game, and we go to overtime, and we play 5 minutes. It's not a situation where there's 1 point something seconds left on the clock. They say that's much harder when it comes to the protest. So right. I have read, and especially considering, because the last 2-minute report, the Knicks have been on the wrong end of that a few times this season, but that comes out the next day. For the ref to come out, for Malloy to come out, the crew chief, and say that night, hey, that was the wrong call, that also makes it seem a little bit more likely, which even though I know it's not super likely, that protest may happen. Who knows if that happens or not? Honestly, one game means a lot in the standings for us just right now, and obviously could mean, a ton at the end of the season. Way before that ever happened, both Brunson and Thibs were just so fetty and so annoyed with the refs. And the refs in general, I thought, were doing a real piss poor job. I have a compilation that I've seen Josh Hart getting smacked in the head, Dylan Brooks putting his shoulder down, throwing Jalen Brunson 3 feet away, which that was a play in real time that everybody was like, that's a charge, Breen, whatever. Oh, an offensive foul. And they said, oh, they're calling it a block. I mean, I just don't understand how that continues to happen over and over and over again. And this guy, Jason Goebel, is the same guy who called Jalen Brunson for a flagrant when Jason Tatum stepped under his feet and we were playing Boston earlier in the season. They came out and said that was the wrong call after the game as well. But they called Brunson for a flagrant when he should have gotten a flagrant on the flip side, plus 3 shots. And this guy also was the same one who, with LeBron last year, remember when he fell to the ground, he was so upset with Boston. He's the same one that made that call. So not with the whole thing against the Knicks, I have to point out he is also born and raised in Miami. And what the NBA does not want is the conversation. And I heard like Alan Hahn and a couple people talk about this the next day, but I was thinking about that night because I pay attention to lines and things like that. And the Knicks at one point were 4 point favorites. And then all of a sudden they were 1 point dogs. And that all happened in like the last hour before the game. Now, I attributed it to that to the fact that Sengun was ruled in because at one point he was questionable earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Sengun is not a 5 point swing kind of player. A lot of money came in on Houston. And what the NBA doesn't want is people putting all of that together, which well, I put it together in real time. I've seen a lot more people put it together since then. And it be talked about, on at least New York radio, if not national radio or TV, about the fact that all this money comes in and then you have that happens. And it's so egregious that play at the I don't think I've seen one pundit, one person with all the Knicks hate there is out there that say actually, yeah, that was a good call. Nobody thinks it was a good call. It was a horrible call. And I just the NBA doesn't want that type of conversation. I think the refs in general this year specifically have not been very good. And I'm so frustrated and wondering when the fuck is this guy Jalen Brunson going to get the respect that he deserves from the refs because he's the smallest guy on the court. He gets knocked around all the time, and he can't seem to get a whistle.
I agree that Jalen Brunson gets, slapped around out there. He does play a kind of game though that lends itself to contact. He brings himself to contact all the time. And it does concern me for him, frankly, that he ends up on the floor all the time. Sometimes when he's not even pushed, but that's just the way he plays. Fine. I do think Jalen Brunson needs to get more calls, no doubt about it. I'm not buying into any conspiracy theory. I don't think there is there's some grand scheme against the Knicks. I think the refs have been somewhat bad this year, and I think it's just poor refereeing. I think there's been a lot of people complaining about it, and I think if we were Indiana Pacers fans, we would be seeing a lot of stuff in Pacers games that we were upset with. I don't think it's a conspiracy against the Knicks. I don't think the fix is in. I think that we're just getting a short end, especially with Brunson, no doubt about it. And that night in particular was terrible.
Yeah, can you imagine your boy Julius when he saw that charge by Dylan Brooks on Brunson? In which, by the way,
Oh my
Dylan
God,
Brooks might be one of my least favorite players. He's high up on
100%.
my list of least favorite players. And his whole act and the fact that he was able to just like body up Brunson and foul Brunson over and over again without getting a call was crazy to me. But then Julius must look at that that lack of call or that blocking call and be like, yo, if I can do that, no one in this league can stop me. Like nobody.
Well, I will tell you though, if we don't, I think we as a team, okay, we as a team have to figure out a way to combat what's happening to Jalen Brunson. I don't know what the answer is, but we either have. I mean, listen,
We're
they're
missing
playing
those
him
guys right
90.
now, though, I think.
I know. But when everybody's back, they're playing him 94 feet. You can expect to see the same act in the playoffs, but. Yeah, Jalen Brunson's going to make them pay a lot more when we have all our guys back, and he could throw it to Randall or Anunoby, so forth, DiVincenzo. But we also have to figure out a way to combat that somehow, running people into hard picks, tightening up and getting more physical with their little guys and their guards. We have to figure out some way to combat that because we're going to see more and more and more of that until we start making people pay. And part of the reason we haven't been able to make people pay is because of the injuries, but we got to come up with something because we're going to see a lot of that.
I think those guys being back on the floor will definitely help, obviously, everything. But I
No
also
doubt.
think that when you look at those guys specifically, like specifically Julius, iHeart, and Mitch, those are guys that both well, even in OG, the physical brand of basketball that they play is a way to combat that to a certain extent, just giving it to them on the other end. And then also, I feel like Julius and iHeart are a little bit more the type of guys that if you're giving it to Brunson, they're like, okay, it's time for me to give your guard a hard foul now. We
That's
don't
right.
really have anybody on our team
Right.
with those guys out that's really that guy. And then also, I totally agree with we need to start doing some different things. Dad, I don't understand. Do the Knicks ever set a pick in the back court for their guard when the guy's pressuring him? No, they just
No.
pass it to somebody else, and then he works so hard just to do something to come around and get the ball from them. Sometimes it's just like, especially if they're going to play you that hard, okay, act like you're going out, turn right back around hard, and have one of your big men standing there and run him through a hard pick and get the ball on the other side. It'll both deter that person because they, actually have somebody in their way, but also you get picked enough times and you don't want to keep, now you're looking for it. You don't want to run through it. Now they start stepping back. But it seems like we never, ever do that. And that's like basketball 101. That's the shit you learn in middle school, man. Like, I don't understand why we never, ever do that. And it, like you said, everybody's doing that to Brunson now, and it drives you nuts. I got to add one thing for the conspiracy. I don't personally say that I think that this was something. I'm saying that the NBA does not want that conversation. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that, the fix was in or whatever, but for a line to move that much is very odd. Your boy,
No, but you brought up that the ref is from Miami. I don't think that makes a difference.
the ref is, listen,
He's a Heat fan, so he's doing this against us. I don't believe he
I
does
used
that
to call Dick Bavetta Nick
because he's
Bavetta.
burning himself. He's
Yeah, I
burning
know.
he
Yeah,
does that because
messes
he
up his
costs
money.
himself money. I don't
Yeah,
believe
but
that.
not if he's making money on the other side. Okay. And I'm just throwing this out here. Your boy Ed Malloy went to the same high school as your boy Donahue.
So what? They teach people how to cheat at that high school? Is that it?
They grew up around the same neighborhood, around the same people, the same type of people that got to Donahue. Maybe could get to
Who
your
knows
guy
if
Ed
they grew up in
Malloy.
the same neighborhood?
Close enough to go to the same high school. They weren't too far away.
Nick, stop. Come on.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. I'm just giving you facts. If the people can take from it what they will, I'm just giving you some cold hard facts.
Okay, sure.
My man, Precious. Precious. I really thought this guy sucked, man. I really thought he sucked.
No, he does not. Not at all.
Now I'm thinking about when we're healthy, are we going to have enough minutes for Precious? I mean,
Yeah.
his ability to finish, he's had at least 16 rebounds 3 different times, just been absolutely stepping up and balling in the absence, of some of our better players and all of our big men. I'm really, really impressed with his defense. One of the things that gets lost in that Houston game is the fact that he made a great block. That's how that
Mm-hmm.
ball gets tossed out there with a great
Yes.
recovery and a great block.
Excellent.
And then how about your boy Sengun, the play before that, taking like a million long steps straight through the middle? Who saw that and didn't think it was a walk?
Who does? I mean, how many walks are not called in the NBA? It's a joke, actually. I think that's really poor.
That one was egregious, though, just as far
I
as
know there are many egregious walks.
time situation, big long steps, and
Terrible.
yeah, and that
Terrible.
I see
They
a lot
let
of
too
guys.
many walks go.
Yeah. I that one right there. I was furious about that. When the Brunson one happened, I was almost just like it was like a silent rage. I was like, they really just called this. They really just called this foul.
Yeah,
This is really happening right now.
it was very disturbing.
Oh, I love the fact that Thibs looked at the Malloy and just gave it to him right afterwards. Rick Brunson went over and got it. To me, like, I'm sorry, but if you make a mistake like that, you don't got to sit there and take it for 30 seconds, but you take it for a couple seconds to walk off. And like, the coach should be given that like, emotional like space to be able to react in that moment like that without it meaning too much. DiVincenzo, he's continued to level up and play well. We'll talk a little bit more about his tight hammy here in a little bit. I got to ask you about your boy, Deuce. I actually just happened to see like an old clip of ours in one of our reels where you're like, I'm Team Deuce, baby. Deuce is my guy. Talk to me. How you feeling about Deuce and his performance here over this last few games of the season? The first
I
half.
mean, Deuce is up and down on occasion, but I think Deuce is a good player. I think he's a good defender, which is going to definitely help us. And I think he can shoot. I mean, the guy makes shots consistently. I like Deuce coming off the bench. I mean, clearly this is the team we got, right? This is who we're going with for the rest of the season, pretty much, right? The only way we might make some changes is in the front court, you pick up some guy who's not playing anywhere, like the Lopez brother or something like that.
Or Nerlens Noel. I saw that floated today. I know you're not a fan.
I saw that too. I'm not a
fan.
fan. Deuce, I think, is a guy who will pay dividends in the near future. I like this. I want him. I like him on the team, and I think he can play some valuable minutes for us down the stretch.
Yeah, that I go back and forth with Deuce. There's been times I've gotten hyped on him this season. This past week was a tough one for me. He's the tentativeness on offense, the not the times you're in the paint and you don't go for a layup, especially and like, dude, this is your shot. This is it. Like, go listen to Lose Yourself by Eminem before the game or something like that. Like, you only get one shot, man. Like, let's go. Let's do it. And He's really got a chance to take take this entire situation and just be able to. It's so frustrating sometimes because you see the ability, you see he can do it, you see he can do certain things sometimes, but then other times he just he gets passive. Now, as far as his defense, this is the thing that troubles me the most. I've watched him get like somewhat cooked by McConnell and Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony was doing whatever he wanted to do against Deuce. He was getting right to his spot and shooting a little like 4 or 5 footer, and Deuce couldn't do nothing with him. And that's the thing that really alarms me. But the other option from Deuce is Alec Burks, and Alec Burks has looked so shaky since he's been on the Knicks, man.
Very shaky. Very shaky. Very disappointing. I don't know. Maybe he's settling in. I'm not sure what it is, but Alec Burks has looked terrible, man. I mean, he's looked nervous with the ball, his hands are, a
It's
little
like always dribbling like
loosey
that. What?
goosey. I don't get it. He doesn't look like the guy I remember. And it's just very disappointing. I don't know why he looks so bad right now, but he does. And he's gotta figure it out, man, because we need legitimate play from him. We need him and McBride to be able to be on the court together at times when you have Jalen Brunson off the court and still produce. Hey, maybe he's in the gym doing some serious drills during the All-Star break, something. I don't know. But Burks has to figure it out, man. We need him to figure it out big time.
But you know what? I feel like we sometimes remember the good of Burks, but like when you look at him and you look at his stats over time, I mean, this is kind of the guy he is. Like he's gonna, score between 10 and 13 points a game. He's not gonna score 15 or 16. He's gonna score like 10 and 13. And when he was with Nick, I can remember like those. It wouldn't even be Burks games. There would be like the Burks quarter that you would salivate over for
Yeah,
weeks because he would like score 19 in a quarter, be unstoppable. But obviously, he doesn't do things like that consistently, which is why he's not a starter in the NBA, or he's a rotation player in the NBA. And he definitely shows you some things certain times. I mean, his percentages are pretty good, but the loosey
that's
goosiness
the
with the
issue.
ball, yeah.
His percentages are good, so I feel like he'll get back to what he's done most of his career, and definitely this year in Toronto. If he can just get back to those kind of percentages, shooting percentages, we'll be good. But he hasn't done that in the first week or so since he's been here. So that's why I think maybe it's just an anomaly. I hope. I don't know.
Hope so. Maybe hopefully it's a pressure situation, where those first few games he struggles and then he settles in and we see him do the things that we hope he can do. Our guy Julius has some good news as far as supposedly he's supposed to be progressing through his rehab and hitting all his milestones. I like the way that sounds. And then I just going into this break, there's no team that ever needed an all-star break as much as we do right now. We really, really need to give some guys, some time to both rehab and just to get a blow. I mean, your man DiVincenzo, he's playing huge minutes, way more minutes than he's ever played. He pulls up with the hammy. Our guy Thibs, I'm seeing a lot of people out there, both in the actual media and fans on things like Twitter, really, really being they just feel like he absolutely runs players into the ground. That Dante DiVincenzo got hurt because he had played 41 of the possible 43 minutes at that point. Talk to me. How are you feeling about that narrative with Thibs? That game against Houston, the starters played the entire third quarter, which is something that you don't typically see too much in the NBA. What do you think about that talking track that's been gaining some ground here recently?
I think it's kind of ridiculous, actually, because the stats you brought up last week, Nick, about none of our players are even in the top 10 of minutes played. And Julius and Brunson are 11 and 17 or something like that. The Ragu thing, that game. I mean, look, man, we were trying to come back and win that game. We actually got back in the game in the third quarter. I listen. I think if you're Thibs, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you took him and Brunson out middle of the third quarter and everything went straight downhill from there, people would be like, "Why did you take him out?" Blah blah blah. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Nick, at the end of that game, when we didn't know he had the hammy injury, you were screaming, "Why isn't Ragu back in the game?"
Yep.
I mean, if he was healthy,
For
we would put him back
Burks.
in the game.
For Burks.
Right, for
100%. Yeah.
Burks, of course we would
Yeah.
have. So, regardless of minutes, if he wasn't hurting, he'd have been back in the game. Sometimes circumstances require that. And especially now when we have no bench, when we're so tight because so many people are injured, I just don't see it, Nick. And I think a lot of people, I think it's actually lazy by a lot of people and lazy by a lot of media. I mean, come on, Nick. If you're looking up stats that prove the point, how are these guys not seeing the same point? But it's a narrative that's followed Thibs since Chicago and so forth. But listen to me. If some people say he ruined Rose's career, meanwhile, Rose wants to play on any team that Thibs coaches. Clearly, Rose has no problem with Thibs.
Right.
So he doesn't feel like he ruined his career or anything like that.
Right.
That's ridiculous, man. It's a lazy narrative that's easy to buy into. Yes, is Thibs a hard charger and pushing his team hard? Yes, he is. And some people say, well, we shouldn't push so hard in the regular season. Well, okay. So if you want about 8 less wins, maybe that's a good idea. But you know what, man? If we could not push as hard and still win as many games, that would be great. But you know what? That's not real life. That's a pipe dream. So let the man coach, man. The man is a good coach. He's the best coach the Knicks have had since who? He's better than Woodson.
Yeah.
Okay, he's
Since
the
Van
best head coach
Gundy.
we've had since Van Gundy. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt.
So Knicks fans who are bitching about that need to shut the hell up and sit down. It's just silly. It's silly. It's silly. It's silly. But yet, when we win, they're happy, and when we lose, Thibs did something wrong. And when somebody gets injured, it's his fault because the guy was on the court. And come on, stop. It's professional sports. People are going to get hurt, and they are in harm's way by the nature of what they do. They're exerting themselves. This is what they do in professional sports. And guess what? Thibs likes to coach his guys to play hard all the time. I appreciate that as a fan. I like that as a fan. The last coaches who did that was Van Gundy and Riley. Okay? We've seen a lot of guys since then who were sloughing off and so forth. I mean, I wonder, how would Carmelo be on a team like this? Carmelo wouldn't do well on this team.
No, Melo would struggle with Thibs because Melo like not getting back shit like that. Sometimes Thibs would not be doing that. But I've also
Randall's done it sometimes.
I was just about to say that I've seen Randall do that sometimes too, but not as much as Melo.
Right, and he's gotten better at not doing that because I'm convinced Thibs does say something to him at some point. He continues to progress and get better at that sort of thing, and that's because of Thibs, man. I think sometimes the narrative is just lazy.
I think that Thibs overall, the thing that he runs, players into the ground, especially with the fact that his, with all those stats that I talked about last week, as far as where our players rank, though, Brunson has moved up to number 9, so he's in the top 10 now. But that was just over this last week. I think that, his teams, the fact that he has a 600 winning percentage since he's been with the Knicks after the break. I think that's a pretty telling stat as well, that the fact that they don't finish, weekly, they finish strong. There's a couple times this year and this past week that I have been screaming at the TV and saying to you, we got to get these guys out. And I don't think that the DiVincenzo thing, I mean, the guy was playing, that could happen at any time. I don't think that's like an overuse thing. Playing the guys the entire third quarter, I think that the problem with that is that now you don't stagger them. And remember how the fourth quarter started, where it was a close game, and all of a sudden it like ballooned back up to 11. I think maybe even got up to 13 and you even said to me, it's like, now they're gassed. Like it seemed like the guys were gassed. We put in the second, I think a little bit more mix and match. And in that game, I was screaming the entire game, where is your boy Bogey? Where's Bogdanovich? Because he only ends up playing like 23 minutes. And I definitely think in this current situation with these guys out, I need this guy to play like 30. And remember when he comes in the fourth quarter, he's cooking. He's the one that got us back in the game, actually. So, yeah, I mean, listen, you can nitpick little things here and there. Like, I was listening to Alan Hahn, and he was saying that there are times when you're watching Thibs that you're going to say, you got to get these guys out. And there's going to be a few of those times this season, but there's going to be other times where it works out the other way. It just seems that you have that. I've never had that feeling with any other coach. Watching the Knicks, there's never been another coach where I was just like, Jesus, man, we're up by 17 with 2 minutes to go. Like, can we get these guys out? And then we call a timeout and then send them back out, one whistle, and then we get them out. Sometimes the substitution patterns with Thibs, they They mystify me a bit. I'm not. They don't really make a ton of sense to me. And there's a lot of people that feel the way. I just don't think that overall you can say he runs his players into the ground. It's just I don't know. It's just it's hard to understand sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's hard to understand, Nick, but I think also too, I mean, it's really easy, and I know you're saying you believe it in real time, but again, Nick, okay, maybe he doesn't play Bogey as many minutes that night because he knows that Bogey's got a slightly tweaked calf, and then after that game, now he can't play no more.
So what? He can play
Okay,
23. He could play 23, but he can't play 30 because of his calf.
I don't know,
No,
Nick.
that
Well,
doesn't
look,
make any
listen, he
sense.
played 23 minutes that night. He played 23 minutes that night, and after that game, he couldn't play no more.
Yeah, but that
So
yeah,
if he had played 30 that night, maybe he'd have crumpled down on the
yeah,
court.
but now you're doing the same thing on the flip side, though.
Of
You're doing
course
this.
I am. Of course I am. And that's what it's all about, Nick. I think as a coach, you have to coach like not taking anybody out in the third quarter, keeping those guys in for the third quarter. These are decisions he's making in real time. He's like, I got to keep this going. We got to keep whatever. He's making these decisions in real time. And you know what? It worked. It worked. We were back in that game. We were
No,
right
but
where we wanted to be.
see, I
But
disagree with that.
it didn't work out at the end because of some different things, partly because of the calls, partly I guess we missed some shots, obviously. But I just think, Nick, it's real. Listen, I watched the game too, and you know what? Their starters were in the game till the entire end of the game. In the Dallas game, where they were winning by a lot, Luka must have been in the game till about a minute and a half left, and they were winning by a bunch.
Yeah, Luka leads at
You know
90 minutes.
Well, that's my point. Okay, so if we were, I forgot even what their coach's name is. Is that Rick Carlisle? No, he's not.
No,
Rick
they have
Carlisle.
Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd, that's right, with the clear glasses. Jason Kidd. Oh, he's running Luka into the ground. I don't believe that. I think part of the reason Luka plays so many minutes is because he tells Jason, "I want to play those minutes." You know what I mean? Now, mind you, now
Yeah, but it's not up to him. It shouldn't be up to him. It shouldn't be up to him.
Okay, so then, Jason Kidd's just making a bad decision. Then no, he's playing them because he believes this is what they need to do to win. He could be right some nights, maybe not so right other nights, but none of it is an exact science, man. It's not 1+1=2. And I think Thibs is a good coach. I think we need to trust our coach and just move on. I just think all the other bullshit is noise. It's noise.
I think he can be a good coach, and he can also get his guys out
He
of
has flaws.
yeah. I think
Everybody has flaws.
I think that
Perfect.
and his lack of offensive creativity are his two major faults. And it's been the same thing always that I've always talked about, always thought about Thibs since he's been our coach. Overall, I think he's a great coach. There's not, I don't, like you said, everybody has faults. There's no coach that I think is perfect, but I think that when it comes to I realize he's making these decisions in real time, but I'm thinking about the same thing in real time about the fact that, and it's just something that you never see. You rarely, it is such an anomaly for a team to play their starters the entire third quarter. The entire first quarter happens sometimes, but that's even somewhat of an anomaly. To do it the entire third quarter, it rarely happens. And the thinking is okay, so now I'm going to either have some guys in that are gassed to start the fourth quarter, or I'm going to have to bring in, all bench players to start the fourth quarter. And then we got ourselves in a bit of a hole and had to fight back throughout the end to get there. So I think that's something that I hope that he's got people around him that are, talking to him about these things, and I hope he's thinking about it. That's all. And one thing I have seen about Thibs is that there have been some things that I've seen him progress on a little bit when it comes to that, and when it comes to some of the things that I think are his fault. So I'm hoping that this is another one of those things.
Nick, how many times has he played the entire starting team the entire third quarter this season?
Once. Yeah.
So clearly that night, for whatever reason, he felt like it was necessary. If he was doing this all the time, I'd say, what is this guy doing? He did it that night because it was necessary. And if I remember correctly, we came back and made it a game during that period of time.
We were gassed to start the fourth.
I know that. We were gassed. We were gassed, Nick, but we were gassed, Nick, but he put people on the bench, and then he sat people down, then he brought them back, and we were in the game. Before he played those guys all the third quarter, we weren't even in the game. So I think we get back in the game. And, the fact of the matter is, Nick, if you and I were the coach, the criticism would be far and wide. Nobody's above criticism. Everybody's going to find fault with the coach, especially when you lose. I think he's a good coach. I think a lot of the stuff is just lather.
Yeah, I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's beyond criticism. That's all. So, all right, second half of the season, we go into the to the break and we're 33 and 22. We are just a half a game behind the Bucks, who are in third place. We start off the schedule in the second half. I don't know if you've taken a look at it, but we got Philly, who's actually been playing pretty decently without Embiid. Then we got the Celtics. Then we get the Pistons, but then we get New Orleans, Golden State, Cleveland. It's not, it's not an easy schedule coming out, and it looks like we should be getting some guys back, within those first couple of weeks, fingers crossed. But that first week or so, we might be rolling out that same team that we've been seeing, hopefully with a healthy Dante and a healthy Bogey. I just really hope that, everybody gets rested. People go out, they do their thing. Obviously, Brunson and Julius, they'll be at the All-Star game. And, we come back refreshed. I can't wait to see what this team is going to look like when we are fully healthy and these guys can get back to playing that, 16-3 type ball that we were playing before guys started, dropping like flies. How are you feeling about the second half? How do you feel about where we end up? Do you think it's really important that we get one of those top three seeds? And do you still think that 50 wins is within striking distance?
I think 15 wins is within striking distance because how many? That's the other thing too. We call this the second half of the season. It's
Not
the
really.
final
No.
third of the season.
Sure, sure.
Okay, it's a sprint to the end now. What do we got? Like 27 more games? I don't know the exact number,
Yeah.
but so can we go 17-10 and then get 50 wins? I think that's very possible. But listen, there's going to be some tough games out there. Listen, Cleveland is concerning me right now. They're playing really, really good ball. They're playing well. Don't sleep on them. They're playing very well. And, we just have to go out there and play hard every night. But we need our guys. And if our guys aren't there, we're not going to beat a lot of these teams. Boston obviously is a problem. And we need to be in the top three so we don't meet Boston, if possible, till the conference finals. Because that's not going to be, beating Boston is a tall order. Okay. So if we can possibly do that, I hope we can do that in the conference finals. But we just need to be fully staffed and have everybody healthy. And then just, let the chips fall where they may, I like this team and I think we're going to continue to progress. I hope we do what we need to do in the postseason. But frankly, I just think this team is going to grow. I think it's going to grow next season. I think we're a good team, and I think have a great foundation.
Obviously, everything is contingent on health.
Right.
But when it comes to like the second half and how things are going to go, yeah, 17-10. I really didn't break down the numbers, but 17-10 definitely seems doable. I'm not scared of Cleveland. Okay. If we play Cleveland and we play them in the playoffs, I'm not scared of them at all. We've been down this before. What, they leveled up and got so much better? No, they're just the same team that we gentlemen swept last year. Boston, the whole thing about getting into, one of those top three seeds and possibly avoiding them into the conference finals is I don't ever, root for injury. But if I'm going to play Boston, I want to play Boston as deep in the season as I possibly can to see if Porzingis can make it to that point. Because they're a totally different team when they don't have him. But yeah, we just obviously health is the thing that every Knick fan is thinking about. Hopefully, OG, he should be resuming basketball activities any time now. iHeart gets to rest up. He gets a nice extended rest. I expect him to, be back for that first game after the All-Star break, just because he's a warrior and that's what he does. And we'll see what happens, obviously. But, I definitely think that 50 is still attainable. 3 seed and anything, you come out of the break and you go 8-2 in your first 10 games and everything changes, just the way we feel right now as opposed to just a week and a half ago when we were going through the best month that we have had in 30 years. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out, but it'll be fun, that's for sure. All-Star weekend, we got a couple guys that are participating in the festivities. Obviously, Jalen Brunson will be in the All-Star game. He's also in the 3-point contest. He's plus 700 to win the 3-point contest. I actually don't think it really lends to the way he shoots because he jumps too much. He jumps too much. Yeah, the guys who
and he doesn't have a quick release. I mean, I don't know. Is he going to get all those balls off every rack? I don't know, Nick. I don't know.
It's typically the guys who have a more of a set shot that really do well. I think in that in that competition. I honestly think that DiVincenzo would be better at that because he's got the crazy quick release and he doesn't, there's times where he catches, he's wide open. He doesn't get a lot of like, height on his jump. He just, kind of slings it up there. But DiVincenzo, I read that his wife is like 8.5 months pregnant. So he was like,
Oh,
so I could see why he wouldn't do that. And now that he's got the hammy, friggin' you should be
no
laid
way.
up the entire break because we need DiVincenzo. I love that
Very
guy.
much.
And
Yeah,
then your
he's awesome.
boy, Young Top. Before we talk about what we think
Baby
about,
top.
Young Top as far in the dunk contest, we got to bring up Obi Toppin trying to through the legs and getting rim jammed. That was the one highlight for the Knicks in that game. Actually, Brunson played a really good game, but we lost to the Pacers. But Obi trying to do that as a visiting player, it was hilarious. I felt it was
That was
so good
great.
to watch him miss that.
That was fantastic. And Randall laughing at him on the sideline. I'm sure they laughed about it after the game, but hey, it's just silly. Honestly, if I'm the coach of that team and he does some foolishness like that, I'm like, come on, man, what are you doing?
That's the first time he's
No,
ever missed it. He did it like 3 times on the Knicks. He's done it at least one
Knicks.
time for the Pacers, and that's the first time that he wasn't able to convert.
That's true.
Nerves, right? That's what it had to be.
Nerves and just he didn't sync it up right. He didn't get
Mishandle the ball, right? Yeah.
right. He was trying to dunk it as he was coming down. He just didn't do it like he usually does. Clearly, we know the guy has a leaping ability. He just didn't sync it up properly this time.
You made this point to me the other day, and I think it's very it's an eye-opening thing to look at. This guy Jacob Toppin, he's scoring 40 points a game. So I mean, not 40 points a game, but having 40-point games in the G League. And when he's on the floor in the NBA, he looks like he is totally lost out there. Like he's not like he shouldn't be on the floor.
Right, right. And in the G League, he's the man. So you have to ask yourself, how bad is the G League? But listen, man,
Deuce is another one of those G League
yes,
All Stars who, like, you look at his numbers from the G League and you're like, yo, this guy's a player. But he's it's just obviously clearly a huge difference, and it's a totally different level. Jacob Toppin, I was expecting good things of him. He looks like he's a little bit scared to shoot. That when he puts up that air ball, I had to send you that text that said, Toppin's gonna top it. You know what I mean? Like that's what they do. They're gonna set a toss up a UFO every once in a while. But I will be interested to see him in the dunk contest. It'll be interesting to see Jalen in the in the 3-point contest. Glad that we have some guys in there where at least represented. It's the weakest
sure,
dunk contest field of all time. I mean,
yeah,
what a joke. Who wants to see
yeah. I don't know how much longer they're going to keep doing this dunk contest. I just feel like it's losing its appeal.
LeBron ruined it because LeBron was that first like guy that
Big star
everybody
who didn't want to do
salivated
it.
that not just star, but like this guy's made for the dunk contest who was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, Kobe did it, Michael did it, all those guys did it, and now LeBron doesn't do it. And now I look at guys like Anthony Edwards. How is he not in the dunk contest?
Yeah, he should be in the dunk
But he's
contest for
too good
sure.
of a player, and the really good players don't do it. We've really had one really good one recently, and then just a bunch of shit around it. The Zach Levine versus what's the tall kid from Denver? Oh, this is gonna make me so mad that this is slipping my mind right
Oh, Porter, Michael Porter, or
now.
Aaron Gordon.
No, yes, Gordon, Aaron Gordon from U of A. But yeah, him versus Zach Levine. That was an all time. To me, that's the second best dunk contest that I've ever watched with my own eyes, other than the Vince Carter, T Mac, Steve Francis. Everybody talks about that's the Vince Carter dunk contest. T Mac and Steve Francis both would have won any of the other dunk contests since then with their performances had they not been going against Vince Sandy, that particular night.
Give me Nate Robinson.
Oh, Nate, come on, man. One of those dunk contests, he had like he kept trying over and over and over again
I
against that
know.
particular. That was
Got to be a
terrible.
limit on attempts. There's got to be
Yeah,
a limit.
he's got two. Listen, that's one thing he's got. Hey, bless up. Shout to my man Nate Robinson. I actually just saw today he made a post. He has kidney failure. He goes through
Yes,
dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours.
yes.
I actually did not know that, but he said he's feeling better. Shout to him. Love my guy Nate. He was a great Nick, and hopefully he feels better. I didn't know that about him. It's crazy that a guy who can be just an absolute physical marvel that he is. Just like, he's small in stature, but just all the athletic ability. His body seems like such a well-tuned machine, yet, something like his kidneys aren't firing properly.
Yeah, it's a shame. I felt badly for him, but hopefully he gets the help he needs. He's looking for a kidney transplant. I hope he can find a donor.
Yeah, I hope we can find a donor. We'll see about the Knicks. We'll see what happens with the second half. Moving on to the Mets quickly. The our new president, GM, whatever you want to call him, David Stearns. He had his long interview. The big headline that came out of it was him saying that he expects Alonso to hit free agency. I've heard some people say it's posturing. Alonso now has Boris. It's all makes me very, very nervous. I've heard many people say that even if he does hit free agency, they don't think the Mets will let him get away. The thing that scares me is the possibility that he feels some type of way about how this is all being handled and the fact that he wasn't sent there and therefore he doesn't even give the Mets a chance. What do you think about what Stearns had to say? I know how you feel about the possibility of Alonso leaving, but after that interview, and is there anything else from the interview that caught your eye?
I know. I think that was the main point, and I think Alonso is Mr. Positivity. I think he will go into the season feeling positive, and you know, I hope that this is all posturing by Stearns, and that he's got some thoughts or plans up his sleeve. I would really hate to lose Pete Alonso. He's a homegrown talent, and he's a big bopper, as they say. So I'd really like to see him stay with the Mets. Um, he's our guy, man. I mean, I just don't see any way we can lose him. But I do also understand the Mets not going out. I mean, if they just went out and gave him top dollar right now, you're bidding against yourself. I mean, you do kind of want to see. I do understand from a business standpoint. Am I going to pay this guy $50 million a year where no one else would offer him more than 37? I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I don't know what the numbers are. My point is, if I'm the Mets and I see somebody offering 45 million a year, then I say, okay, we'll give you 49. But I do understand them not wanting to bid against themselves. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I like to believe this guy, David Stearns, knows enough about what he's doing, but we'll see, man. We thought Epler was going to be decent, and he kind of sucks. So, who knows?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you with all of that. Echo all of those sentiments. The thing that it makes me think about, and a shout out to my man CPNY for being the first person who I saw bring this up, the fact that go ahead and extend a guy like Alvarez right now, because that's what
Get ahead of all of this.
and I hate to say it, but that's what the Braves have been doing a lot recently, and it's paid them dividends. They got, MVP candidates getting, got not MVP winners getting paid pennies on the dollar because they got bought out those arbitration years and, went ahead and invested in them early. Now, obviously, you take a risk because in baseball, a guy can look great for 2 years and then suck forever and be out of the
Right.
baseball in no time. But we didn't do that. We're seeing that model with a team that that is in our division down south, and it's something that we need to look at. If we see these guys, especially some of these guys, they start off this season hot and they're playing well. Hey, let's go ahead and get that done now, so we're not in a situation like we are, where Boris is able to hold us to the fire when this guy is already an established superstar and the best power hitter in the game. So I hope they
Yeah.
get out in front of that. It's that time for hope eternal. Pitchers and catchers are reporting of spring training is about to officially start. And I just really want to see a team of, not a bunch of stars that we threw together, but a team of a bunch of guys who come together. We got a new manager. We got, a new guy running the ship in Stearns. Really looking forward to the Mets season this year. I always get excited for baseball. I just hate that this Alonso thing is kind of, the cloud
Yeah.
that's hanging over us right now. But, once we start playing baseball, talk about things like that will, fade away.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it does concern me, man. I can't tell you how upset I'd be if we lost Alonso. But let's, hope that doesn't happen. And I have to believe that Steve Cohen does not want that. Okay. I believe that he's trying to give this guy the chance and be a little hands off. But I think in a situation like that, at some point, Steve Cohen needs to step in and just say to Stearns, listen, man, don't let that guy leave the building. Okay? Just do what you got to do, play your little games. Don't let him leave the building. And I hope he does that. I really do.
I hope that conversation happened before Stearns ever even got hired.
Right?
Hopefully.
Right. Right.
Super Bowl 58. What a game. I mean,
Oh, man.
it really, and it's funny because in the first half, I saw some people commenting about the fact that it was, kind of a boring game. Obviously, not a ton of scoring. But the Kansas City Chiefs were able to pull it out 25-22. Mahomes does it again. Lots to pick apart, and people have been doing it all week as far as this game. But before we get into the nitty gritty and some of the details, just talk to me, big guy. How'd you feel about the big game?
It was a good game. I mean, yeah, the first half was a little slow, but it was a good game. You judge the game on the entirety, not on half. So I thought it was a very good game, exciting. I think that Kansas City's just that team right now, man. They're very good, and they have an outstanding, beyond outstanding quarterback. I mean, that guy, he's definitely ranking up there. And like I heard somebody say this week, he's the GOAT in waiting. In that, man, if he keeps playing like this for another 2, 3 years, he will be the GOAT. And like I've told you a million times, Tom Brady has the accolades, but nobody could tell me that if you're starting a team from scratch and everything else is equal, that Tom Brady would be better for you than Patrick Mahomes. That's just silly. The guy can move, he can make all the throws, and he can move. Okay, he does a lot with his legs. Although he's not a running quarterback, he does a lot with his legs when he needs to, and that's fantastic. Now, that's no diss to Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the greatest of all time at this time. There's no doubt because of all he did and all his wins. The guy was phenomenal. He was amazing. But Patrick Mahomes is something else, man. I'm really impressed with him, and I think Andy Reid is just a fantastic coach. He's a very smart guy in the way he handles the game and constantly outmaneuvers the other coach in the second half. I think the other coach is getting a lot of grief for it, but I think a lot of people end up getting grief when they go up against Andy Reid.
Andy Reid was the guy getting that grief at one point back in Philly. And
Right.
so Mahomes, did you see the stat that Ryan Clark put out as far as like at the end of a less than a minute with the game within 7 points and the ball, like the percentages of the different quarterbacks?
No, I didn't see that.
Yo, man, this stat is crazy. So you look at that stat, and some of the better ones, like Brady, for example, in that situation, he's been successful 5 out of 11 times. Mahomes is 7 for 7 in his career.
It's unbelievable.
That's a wild stat. I mean, he just literally, you give him the ball, there's a minute left, and he needs to score. He does it every single time. And like you
Hmm.
said, using his legs, I love that. Give Reed credit for the play call. Give Mahomes credit for the way that he runs it. When there's, it's fourth down and they got to get a couple. I think it was 4th and 1 if it wasn't 4th and 2. But they run that like read option, and then Kelsey's right there, and then I think they had Rice right there as well. But he decided to just keep it himself, go up, slide perfectly, and get that first down. He's so opportunistic with that, and he continues, like I said last week, with the Slick Nick props on the over on the Patrick Mahomes rushing yards. He continues to have those big runs when it counts the most in the biggest games, in the biggest moments. Now, as far as the coaching, you say a lot of guys give Shanahan a lot of flack, and you just think that that's just a circumstance. Or do you think did you
No,
have any issues with Shanahan and how he did anything in that game?
the main issue I had is that he threw the ball too much early in the second half. He should have stayed with the running game. And then obviously that call at the start of overtime. That was just foolish. There's no way to explain that to me where that's a good idea. This whole thing about worrying about the third possession is I don't even know what he's talking about there. Just shut up. The whole thing about, and this is the most blatant point to me, is that if you get the ball second, you have 4 downs to do everything. If Mahomes had that ball first, when it was 4th and 1 or 2 on their side of the field, there's no way he would have gone for that if they had the ball first. There's no way he would have gone for that. But he did, and you see what the result is. It's foolishness to think any other way. It's just, this is football. I mean, and I think I think that was his biggest and most egregious mistake of the game, frankly, is not taking the ball second in overtime when he could have, and that puts the pressure squarely on Mahomes, and I mean, think about it, Nick. He would have punted the ball.
Mhm.
Cannot take the chance right there on going for it on 4th and 1. You would have had to punt the ball. So there it is.
There's so many reasons it doesn't make sense. The fact that his players came out right after the game and many of them said that they didn't even understand that, whereas
That's,
the Kansas City players, well, first of all, some of the onus is on them. You play in the NFL, you should understand the rule. There's that, but also listen, as we know, when you're a coach, your job is to drill everything into everybody's head until it's second nature and just make sure that they understand what we're going to do in these situations. Now, those guys not knowing that doesn't really change anything as far as how they play. I do just think that there's a reason why the Chiefs, on the flip side, have gone over this many, 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 many times since the rule has changed. Many of them said that when they were talking about it. So I think that's something to look at right there. The not running the ball, the amount of time when you have McCaffrey and when you're ahead and at one point up ahead by 10 points against this team and this guy that you want to keep off the field, the amount of times that they had possessions where they came out and throw was insane to me. I did not understand that at all. And then, and also, hold on, one other point about the throw. Remember when he was the OC for Atlanta, the thing that he did was the fact that they threw and then he got sacked. Matt Ryan, he was out of field goal range, and then they were instead of being up by 11, now you're up by 8, and we know what Brady did after that. So this is kind of a recurring thing. He was up by 10 against Kansas City a couple years ago and wasn't able to close the deal. And the OT decision, I mean, there's just so many different levels of why it makes no sense. All of the things that you talked about. In addition to that, you're also missing one of your best players. Okay. You had one of your best defensive players. He just snapped his Achilles running onto the field, which that was heartbreaking. That really sucked. But you're missing one of your best defensive players, an impact player. That's even more reason why you should be running the ball more and trying to keep your defense off of the field earlier in the game, and even more reason why you shouldn't put your defense in the position to go against Mahomes with 4 downs. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not even the whole with 4 downs thing. It's also okay, we know that if we get 7, the game is over. And they say that if San Francisco had scored a touchdown, that they would have went for 2 because they're just at that point they're like, yo, this is our chance to win the game. And Mahomes says that, and Mahomes also says that they've been talking about this since back at the beginning of the season. That in this situation, this is what we do. It seems as if that conversation was not being had, and that whole third possession thing, you got to get there in the first place. And it's also a momentum thing. They just ran down the field against you at the end of the half. The only reason they didn't score a touchdown was because it was about time. It wasn't about the fact that they couldn't score a touchdown. That's why they had to kick the field goal to go into overtime. It made no sense. And I don't know, his analytics department that told him that what you really want to do is be able to get that possession if it ends up becoming a tie wherein it's really sudden death. Did they share with him that Mahomes was at this point 6 for 6 in those situations? Did they share that part with him?
who knows? I do look at it. And I say to myself, I feel like the players saying, well, we didn't know the rules, kind of throwing the coach under the bus. I have a hard time believing, Nick. Now, mind you, the coach probably should have drilled it into them more. But like you said, them knowing the rules really doesn't make that big a difference. It's about the coach knowing the rules and calling the plays accordingly, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they spoke about it, okay? Probably not as much as they should have, but I'm sure they spoke about it. And not for nothing, Nick, the rules are not that, it's not like some crazy schematic. They explained the rules at the coin flip, and I understood it perfectly. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like this is something I have to study for a month. I mean, they explained it right there. I was like, oh, okay, I got it now. And that was it.
Right.
I mean, let's not act like these guys got to read a textbook about this. Okay, so I'm not worried about the players, how they don't understand it and know it. I don't know. That's them not taking the time to listen to what is going on. I mean, as soon as we go into overtime, I would think that the whole sideline needs to be talking about, hey, you guys know, this is the deal, right? This is the deal. Mind you, like we both said, doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that these guys aren't talking about that. And these guys saying they didn't know, well, maybe they didn't know, but you still got to play. And let's face it, Nick, none of this matters if this guy doesn't fumble the punt.
Well, the punt hit him in the back of the foot, which I saw some. I've
Well,
had,
whatever.
yeah, I was arguing with a couple of my buddies in a group chat because one of my buddies said, "Oh man, that sucks. That's just really unlucky." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
You really have one job. You're supposed to be blocking, but your biggest job in that situation is to not have the ball hit you and make it a situation where the other team can get the ball back. That was such a huge mistake right there. And the guy was screaming. They don't say fire. They say another word. I forget what they were saying. They said it
Right.
during the broadcast. But what Peter? I think it's Peter, Peter, Peter. And the guy was. I've seen a clip of the guy who was supposed to be receiving it. He was screaming it, and that guy just dropped the ball, man, or not dropped the ball. That guy just clipped the ball, and it ended up making basically gifting Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs 7 points. I mean, they scored on the first play.
Well, and when that guy is screaming Peter, 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 or fire, 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 this fool was trying to engage a block. No, you have to run in the other direction when you
Get
hear
out
that.
of there.
Just run away from where the ball might be. He was trying to engage a block, man. That's exactly what you're not supposed to do. Just get away. And he did exactly that, man. And it may have cost him the game.
I've listened to
Definitely a
you.
factor.
I mean, listen, you can't say it didn't cost them the game when it ends up being tied at the end of regulation, and that gifted them
Right.
those points. And with no, and especially with how everything worked out with the time, without that happening, everything's totally different. And I've heard you my entire life scream like, "This guy's too close. This guy's too close." Like there's in that situation where they're too close, and you're like, "Yo, that ball bounces the wrong way, hits you in the back, and no, it's
That's
right
why
back
the
to him."
football is shaped that way,
Right.
okay? Because you don't have any idea where it's going to go. I always hear people screaming, "Oh, how do you not pick up that fumble?" Trust me, Nick. When you're on a field with all that equipment on and you're trying to pick up that ball, that is one of the hardest things on earth to do. That ball, you have no idea where it's going at times. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It was a really, really tough, play for that young man, and
Yeah,
something that you hope you learn from. But I don't know. I don't know how you don't think about that every day for the rest of your life if you're that guy.
yeah, yeah. Sucks.
You saw that they fired their defensive coordinator, this guy Wilkes.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that. Maybe there's a personality conflict with him and Shanahan. I don't know, but his stats were better than D'Amico Ryan's the previous
Mhm,
year.
mhm, mhm.
Um, Wilkes has done a good job, but you do find it interesting. Wilkes constantly getting bounced. I mean, I don't know. Does he rub some people the wrong way? I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's about results, and the guy's getting good results, man. So I don't know. I mean, and it really sucks for him because now he's got nowhere to go. He may end up taking a year off because there's not a lot of opportunities out there for him right now. It
Right.
happened so late.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't even think about that part. Yeah, if you're the guy, because typically those guys that go to the Super Bowl, they're not getting let go.
No,
Coordinators. So they're usually up
no,
for head coaching jobs, if anything.
yeah.
So that is a tough situation as far as what he's going to do next year. What did you think about Kelsey and the chest bump on your boy Andy Reid?
Oh yeah, Kelsey was obviously just worked up right there. I mean, look, I'll give Kelsey a pass simply because he's an emotional guy and he was emotional right there, and he was very upset with the guy who had been put in instead of him not making what should have been a simple block, and
Hmm.
that same guy came right through and stripped the ball.
Hmm.
So I get it why you get worked up. You shouldn't run into the coach that way. That was not cool. The coach is okay to let it go. I'm fine with it, but I will say, a lot of people would not be given that leeway, shall we say?
I think that the leeway that he's given has to do with their overall relationship. I've seen Andy Reid really get after him and get in his face in certain
Right,
times,
right,
and actually, put his hand on him as he's doing or whatever.
right.
He caught Andy Reid out of he caught
Off
him off
balance.
guard. He caught him off balance, as he says. I also heard Andy Reid say, he says my balance is terrible anyway. He doesn't look like a guy who's too nimble on his feet.
No,
But
that's
you
fair
saw
statement.
one of the things that you see is that when he bumps into him, he puts his hand around and kind of grabs, like he realizes like he's like, I'm bumping you, but I don't want you to fall down or anything like
Oh
that. I think
no,
he's just
no.
getting up in his face. And one point that I saw that was pretty good. Listen, forget the block, whatever. If I'm Travis Kelsey, we're on the 12-yard line. There's no play that we run that I'm not on the field ever.
Keep me in the
What are we
game.
talking
Keep
about?
me in the game.
I
Yeah, yeah.
have to be in the game right now. Like, stop this gadget bullshit and get me in the game. I thought Andy Reid did an excellent job. We were just talking about Andy Reid and his overall shape. You've seen the clip of him before when he's a kid and he participates in the like punt, pass, and kick.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious. But yeah, the there were certain little plays that Andy Reid ran where, and I think Romo even said, "Oh, what a play!" Where they ran the blitz and they had like a back out into the flat, like they just it's almost like they anticipated exactly what the other team was going to do. And really, when it comes down to it, your boy Spags in his duel versus Shanahan, he won.
Yes. Spags had an excellent game.
Excellent playoffs.
Yes, excellent playoffs. He did really well. And I think Spags is that guy, Nick. He ain't going to become a head coach anymore. He's good being one of the best DCs,
He said
especially
as
in
much.
crunch time. Yeah. Oh, he has? Okay.
He's
I can
pretty much,
believe
yeah.
that.
He's
Because
said
he
even
didn't
like
have a great time as a head coach.
he's even said, a couple years ago or something like that. He was just like, "Yo, man, like, what am I doing here? What I gotta be at some head coach, some team that needs a coach right now, as opposed to be able to sit here and soak this up." He's an older guy.
Right.
He's been there. He's done that. I'm sure he's got plenty of money in the bank. I could see there's a lot more older guys that I think would make that decision and should make that decision because there's being a great coordinator and being a great head coach are two totally different things.
That's right. And he's a hell of a coordinator. He needs to stay right where he is and win another two or three championships and just ride the wave with that spectacular team. I don't know why anyone would want to walk away from that now.
Right,
Um,
right.
I now okay. Well, they let Bieniemy go last year and go to the Commanders, and now he's ass out. He's out of a job. He's not working with anybody. There's a guy who I get the impression sometimes, Nick, just from hearing these people talk and whatnot, he rubs some people the wrong way.
That's
That's clear, right?
that's pretty well
So,
documented. Yes.
right. And I mean, that was documented on the Commanders within a few months of him getting there. You
Yeah,
know,
like the second week of camp. Like there was
right?
guys talking about like
I thought it interesting that Andy Reid was like, "Okay, no problem, Eric. Yeah, you need to go get a chance, and yeah, go for it." I don't get the impression that Andy Reid was like, "Please don't leave." You
well,
know,
the issue with him and the reason that he was that a lot of people felt that he was having a hard time getting a shot at being a head coach was the fact that he didn't call plays in Kansas City.
right?
And Andy Reid's not giving up play calling. So now
That's
this
right.
past year, he got a chance to call plays for the Commanders. Obviously, that didn't go so well for him.
No,
And yeah, just the fact that he was the OC of Kansas City and consistently getting passed up and not getting these head coaching jobs definitely says to me, whether it be reputation, whether it be how he comes off against people, two people when he's in the room with them and interviewing, that he, something. And at first there was a whole lot of people saying, something. The issue was that he's black. I don't think that's the case here. I think we've seen a lot of brothers here recently get head coaching shots. The issue is whether or not they get the second head coaching shot if they fail.
right.
That's the real issue. But when it comes to Bieniemy with the pedigree that he has and the resume that he has in the league, the fact that he couldn't get a job as an OC and the fact that he got unceremoniously bounced for a guy who, I mean, this guy, I mean, come on, it's not like they went out and first of all, that they initially said he was coming back. And then Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to go be the OC shit. Yeah, he's supposed to go be the OC somewhere else. And then he said no, and then went over to the Commanders. And then they said, okay, sorry, Bieniemy, you're out. That's a tough one
Right.
right there, man. That's a tough one. This
Yeah.
guy, he does not seem well like he needs to go be the quarterback coach at some, organization that really needs it. And that might be his ceiling. I don't even know if OC is in his future anymore.
Well, I mean, think about it, Nick. Like you said, was he an OC at Kansas City? If you're telling me he wasn't calling the plays, am I hiring you as a head coach? If I'm going to bring you in as a head coach and you're going to be my Andy Reid and you're going to call the plays, but I've never seen you call plays before. And now that I've seen you call plays, you didn't do so well. It didn't go so great. So,
Yeah, it's not quite the same as having Andy Reid calling the plays and
no,
Patrick Mahomes
no.
executing them. It's real easy to be the OC in that situation and look good.
But even beyond that, I mean, okay, Patrick Mahomes isn't, I mean, Sam Howell isn't Patrick Mahomes, not by a long shot. That said, the play calling was mediocre at best. Wasn't that great? They threw the ball like an incredible amount of times. I mean, yeah, I don't know that he's that. I don't know that he's an accomplished OC at this point. So he may have a tough time, sticking.
What's interesting, I never thought about this before, but they did throw the ball a ton this year with the Commanders. And since he's left this past year, the Chiefs have gotten much more back into the run. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I mean, obviously the ascension of Pacheco, that helps, but
Mhm.
they've relied on the run a lot more and not as much of, Mahomes just throwing the ball down the field. I think some of that is the fact that he no longer has Tyreek. I think when you have Tyreek, you're going to throw the ball deep a lot more. But yeah, who knows? Eric Bieniemy. I did not think that the Eric Bieniemy topic was going to be so prevalent in this episode. But yeah, Super Bowl, great game. Love seeing it go into OT. Love the new OT rules. They're perfect.
Good.
And, Patrick Mahomes just continues to put himself in that. I mean, it's not even like he's starting to get into that, like, not even just football. We got to start talking about, like, him and Jordan and, Gretzky and Bird. And I just did something.
Yeah.
He's that I think it's multiple MVPs, 3 championships, 3 MVPs in your first 7 years. That list, I mean, Jordan's not even on that list. You got like Bird, him. It's he's really, really just taking this entire thing to another level, and he's still super young. There is no signs of it slowing down, and he also seems to be a great guy too. So that
Seems
really
so.
helps as well. Seems to be a great guy and also a gamer. I'm telling you, you should watch that show Quarterback on Netflix. Just
Yeah.
fast
Good.
forward through Mariota and Kirk Cousins and just watch the Mahomes stuff. As Sarah was like she was rooting for Mahomes in the Super Bowl because she's watched that show. So now
Right.
she feels like she likes this guy. But yeah,
The likable guy.
he is a likable guy. His pops was a Met, so I like that part. His pops, we're not gonna get into his pops, but come on, pops, chill, pops,
Not that week.
chill.
Not that week. Okay.
Yeah,
Do that
the
shit in the off season, bro.
fourth, fourth.
Yeah. Bad.
I don't understand the fourth. I don't understand the fourth when you clearly can have a driver. Clearly,
Anytime you want.
anytime you want. And I'm pretty sure not just NFL players, but their immediate family members also have access to like an anytime car, no matter what. They have like an NFL Uber.
But he doesn't even need that,
You don't
Nick.
even need that, right?
He's got the card that his son gave. That's all he needs. A credit card to just call whoever. No, anybody can drive for him anytime. That's foolishness. That's bullshit. And I hope he doesn't get to a situation where he gets hurt or hurts someone else. That's all.
Absolutely. And, if Patrick Mahomes somehow came out and had a terrible game this week, this past week in the Super Bowl, a lot of people would have been saying, oh, well, listen, when the guy, just don't even, I would just hate to even have to make my son have to even deal with that shit, man. Like that,
Right.
And it's just unfortunate. Obviously, I hope that he gets the help that he needs and starts making better decisions. And like you said, most importantly, he doesn't hurt himself or someone else.
Right.
Last but not least, slightly lighter subject, DeAndre Ayton, a guy who we've had some fun, observing slash ridiculing since he's been in the NBA.
Oh, I heard a nickname for him the other day where some people try to call him dominating.
Who did? No one did.
I heard somebody
Whoever
on
said that.
ESPN said at one point,
What was it?
dominating.
Back when he was at U of A?
No,
Nobody
no, no,
called him
no, no.
anything like that in the
I don't.
NBA.
Yeah, they were just maybe people called him that at U of A. I don't know, but
Okay, maybe at U of A. Hey, listen, U of A, I thought the guy was going to be a great pro. He was the number one overall pick consensus. Everybody thought he
just
should
never
be.
know.
And you just never know with these guys. When he was with the Suns, there was all these rumors about, him not, being sleepy when he gets to practice or a game because he stayed up the night before playing too many video games. That seems to be something that
He's hanging out with the quarterback from
Kyler
Arizona.
Murray. I was just about to
Yeah,
say
there you
that's
go.
something that seems to plague, the Phoenix sports stars is that, the next there was a great breakdown I saw one time of literally like Kyler Murray's games right after like a new Call of Duty drops. And it's like
Oh my
they've
God.
mapped it out and I'm telling you, my man is up too late. His eyes are burning the next day in the game because he's been playing too much Call of Duty. And then this guy, Aiton, he gets traded away. Now he's in Portland. And we already had the story of him not being able to make it to a game because he was iced in.
The ice storm, yes.
No one, I've never heard of this happening to any player in the history of the NBA. There's games
A
played
lot
in
of rain,
Portland all the time.
freezing.
Minnesota's got games. See, the Seattle had a team for a long time. Somehow, some way, these guys have never figured this out, have been able to figure this out. And if you live in this neighborhood and you have a situation where this can happen, I'm sure your neighbors, like I guarantee you, there's somebody else who lives in that neighborhood, which I'm sure is a very affluent neighborhood, and there's some people there that are probably pretty hard workers. I bet you there's some of those people that live in that neighborhood that made it to work that day when Ayton didn't. They might have
Hold on, no,
switched
hold on,
up.
no. I did hear, Nick, that there were some team operatives who came out there and they
I don't
couldn't
believe
get
it.
them out.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. They did not send
They
operatives.
need to bring
They did not
a
send
full
operatives.
pot of hot water and throw it on his front door and break the ice or something.
Yo, man, that's the type of shit that's only going to happen to a guy like that. And then a story comes out in The Athletic, and one of the quotes from the story that I think is hilarious is his first months in Portland were defined by tardiness and tantrums, according to team sources. And there has been an eerie resemblance to Hassan Whiteside, the former
Yes,
Blazers center,
I read
whose
that.
statistic looked nice but had little to no impact on a game. Before we move forward, I must say, I got to throw this out there. Ayton this last week and a half has been playing somewhat better. But I just think that that quote is hilarious. The tardiness and tantrums. You're a grown man. You play in the
Double T's.
NBA. And the crazy thing about him is that when I've seen him talk to, he talks as if he's still like that dude. And he talks about how he's like proud of what he's, accomplished thus far in the league. I think he may have even had a quote where he said something about like, if I don't accomplish another thing, I'd be proud. Like, I just think that guy is a clown. He seems to be, very immature.
Yes.
Tantrums and tardiness, couldn't scream immature any louder than, those two words. And it's just a shame that this young man who has the body, all the ability. And it seemed at one point that he was just one of those guys who wasn't willing to impose his will on the floor. Like we've seen so many players in the NBA. We've seen a million players in the NBA who have all the ability, all the
Yes.
talent, but they just don't impose their will. But now it sounds like it's not that. It just doesn't seem like he's taking this seriously at all. And he's pretty happy just to be a middle of the road, very disappointing player who collects a check. And that really is, like I said before, Shane.
Like I've always told you, Nick, some people aren't used to being actually pushed to be their best. People feel like they do it well enough, so they don't push themselves, and they don't appreciate other people pushing them to be their best. They think you're being a pain in the ass. Well, okay, well, this is what it means to be a professional athlete, and you're not always going to be comfortable. But you know what? He clearly needs to be made uncomfortable because that's going to be what makes him better.
Yeah, I definitely think that everything that you said there is spot on. He seems like the type of guy who, he's been, first of all, basketball is probably very easy for him. He was way bigger
Mm-hmm.
than everybody and stronger than everybody his entire life. And even in the college game, he physically dominated and imposed his will. But in the NBA, as we know, there's only one Shaq, and everybody else, they got somebody for you that can match up with you. And then it's going to come down to how hard you work, how you develop your game, and how much you want it. And there's nothing about that guy that has ever shown me with any consistency that he wants it. He had that issue with Monty Williams where, they supposedly got into some argument and it was about his lack of seriousness. Some people say that might have been had the video games might have had something to do with that. And then, Monty Williams had a playoff game where he didn't play much. And then even when he does play, he's often disappears on the court, which is hard to do when you're the
Right.
biggest guy. And my friends who are Suns fans, they couldn't wait for this guy to get out of town, and they're laughing about him now in Portland and the type of shit that he's pulling up there. I hope that he gets it. He's one because of his size, he will be in the league as long as he wants to be in the league, as long as he's
Mm-hmm.
healthy. It's
Mm-hmm.
just about whether or not he can be not just a starter, but an impact player, or he ends up becoming, Robin Lopez.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. Well, we'll see. He's a stooge.
Catch us every week on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. Please follow, like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all the love. We try to stay as current as possible, so episodes will drop on Thursdays or Fridays, depending on the Knicks schedule. You can also catch me on True Knicks Talk Post Game Live throughout the second half of the season with my guy CPNY, link in bio, and you can find us on all socials at he_did this to me. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.